Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. So today I want to discuss with you, because it's been an ongoing discussion, probably related to some of the Micro Four Thirds explanation videos I've been putting up. A lot of people anyways, it seems, do not understand what bokeh is, or bokeh, and what depth of field is, and how the two relate to each other. I see people confusing the two, thinking depth of field is bokeh and bokeh is depth of field. I see people just not understanding what either of them are, or thinking that the two are the same thing, none of which is correct. So let's start with some strict definitions here. Bokeh, and the Wikipedia definition actually works quite well for us. Bokeh, or bokeh, however you want to pronounce it, is the aesthetic quality of the blur produced in the out of focus parts of an image produced by a lens. Bokeh has been defined as the way the lens renders out of focus points of light. So essentially, this is that out of focus background, and it's the quality of that out of focusness, if you will. Some people say there's good and there's bad bokeh, and there certainly is, because some lenses don't do it well. It has to do with the aperture blades, how many blades are in an aperture, and the shape of them. So essentially, if you can picture that out of focus background is comprised of, if you even want to think of it as pixels or little dots all put together for that out of focus background, each of those can have a really nice smooth edged quality to it, or in contrast, it could be kind of jaggedy and not look really good. A nice bokeh is a lens which renders that bokeh really smooth and creamy. And that's what it is. It's a quality, a characteristic of each individual lens. So it's got nothing to do per se with how you shoot the image. Just certain lenses have a nice bokeh, or conversely, not a nice bokeh, based on how they're built. The elements can sometimes factor in, but mostly it's got a lot to do with the irises and the shapes of the irises and how many blades are in the iris. So essentially what we're talking about here is the quality of that blown out background, that bokeh. And that is not depth of field. We'll move on to depth of field in a second here. That is just how that blown out background looks. Is it nice and soft and creamy, or does it look like it's comprised of a whole bunch of little shapes that are kind of jaggedy and a little bit distracting? That's bad bokeh. Good bokeh is nice, consistent creaminess right across the board. Nice, consistent, soft, dreamy, if you will. I'm just trying to, take a visual and put it into words for you. And that would be the better bokeh, is that soft, consistent, non-jagged edges, just nice, softly blown out background. Let's go over to depth of field. Depth of field, here's the Wikipedia definition, and it's good. In optics, particularly as it relates to film and photography, depth of field is the distance between the nearest and farthest objects in a scene that appear acceptably sharp in an image. And what this basically means, that at a given aperture, which when we're down to the wider apertures, which are the smaller numbers, like for instance f1.8 on a 50mm f1.8 is your widest aperture, and that gives you your shallowest depth of field. So if you're focusing, for instance, on this microphone and you're at f1.8, you've probably only got, I'm going to guess, somewhere at f1.8 on a 50mm, and it depends on how close you are to the subject too, because it changes things. That's why you can consult a depth of field chart to get all this information. But in general, let's say you have a foot of depth of field at f1.8 on a 50mm lens at the distance you're at. So then, focusing on the microphone, you got about 6 inches in front and 6 inches in behind that's in focus. That's your field. That's your depth of field. Depth of field being the area that's in focus. In front of that, you'll be out of focus, and the farther in front, the more out of focus. Behind that, you'll be out of focus, and the farther back, the more out of focus. That's how you get those out of focus backgrounds, because at f1.8, focus on this microphone, you're going to have that whole background out of focus behind your subject. Now, how far behind your subject is relative to the distance to where you are with the camera and the lens to that subject. And that's where a depth of field chart comes in handy. But That is depth of field. It's not the quality of that blur. Depth of field is what's in focus at a given aperture. So when you're focusing on your focus point, depth of field is, let's say for sake of argument, f1.8, it's a foot. You got 6 inches in front, 6 inches behind. That's your depth of field. That's what's in focus. So if you are then shooting at f1.8 and you got your subject in focus, and for sake of argument, 10 feet behind you is totally out of focus, your bokeh is that out of focus area. It's how it's rendered, the quality of that out of focus area. So you can see the bokeh, the quality of that out of focus area, that's how pretty, if you will, the out of focus area is. And if it's not jagged, and if it's nice and smooth and creamy and consistent, it's not your depth of field. Your depth of field is what is in focus at that aperture, how far the depth of field is at that aperture, how much is in focus. Like we were saying here, 12 inches would be in focus. So I hope that kind of explains it for you. Have a look at the Wikipedia definitions if you want. But basically, yeah, in a nutshell, bokeh is the quality of the blown out background, that blurry area. Depth of field is the amount of distance that is in focus at a given aperture. As if I'm trying to put that into more layman's terms, but as they said here, depth of field is the distance between the nearest and farthest objects in a scene that appear acceptably sharp. So there's your Wikipedia definition. So I hope that helps, folks. Hope you get a better understanding of what is bokeh, and what is depth of field, how they relate to each other, because they are very related, but they're two different things. So let me know, did that help out? Leave me a comment below. Is there a better way to explain it? Can you put it in better words than I did? By all means, let me know. Sometimes it's hard to translate into layman's terms. You can totally understand the technical definition, and sometimes that might be my falling down if I'm not putting it in layman's terms well enough for you. If you got a better way to do it, for sure, leave it in the comments below. Let's have a discussion on bokeh, depth of field. If you have any questions, let us know. Either myself or one of the other viewers will try to get that answered for you. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon with more videos, more articles. We'll keep you up to date with what's going on in the world of photography right here at artoftheimage.com. Keep up to date with what's going on in videography and technology too. Thanks a lot, folks.